All right, hello and welcome to this RMS Support Center release brown bag training. Today we're going to be reviewing the updates and fixes made in the upcoming patch release. This patch is going to be 491, but that does have the potential to change. This patch is targeted to be released on July 25th, which will be this Thursday in the afternoon. If you experience any issues downloading the new patch, please don't hesitate to contact the help desk. There's a link to our ticketing system in Jira and a phone number that you can call listed on the references slide in this presentation. The slides for this presentation can be found on our website, rms.usace.army.mil. That link can also be found on the references slide of this presentation. These slides will also be updated to include any Q&A that occurs during this webinar, and this presentation is also being recorded. So this video will be posted on our YouTube channel. We also have some demos recorded and linked at the end of this presentation in the references slide. Those will also be added to the most updated slides in case they weren't added in time in the invitation. Keep an eye out for the video of this training. It should be posted within about 5 business days following today. So if you know anyone who couldn't attend, or if you'd like to be able to reference back to it, this video will be made available on our YouTube and listed on the RMS website. If you have any questions regarding anything we covered today, please type that question into the Q&A section of this WebEx. We do have some RMS Support Center folks on standby ready to take care of those as they come in. We're also going to open up the floor for discussion at the end of the presentation, so if you'd like to wait until the end and unmute to ask your question verbally, you'll have the opportunity to do that as well. Okay, so here are our topics for the day. First, we're going to review an update to revision history. Then we'll review a lot of updates made under the administration tab. Next, we'll look at some updates and fixes made in the finances tab. And then we'll finish up by looking at a fix in the import real property and contract reports modules. And like I mentioned before, we'll open the floor up for any verbal discussion to occur at the end. Okay, so first up is an update to revision history. So before revision history was added in our previous release, some information was tracked and displayed within fields on the screen. That data now displays in the revision history table. To ensure that any historical data is not overlooked, the legacy revision history button is available to view the details regarding an item's history before the new revision history was released. This update only impacts the contractor payrolls and activity hazard analysis modules. So this button is going to allow you to view the legacy revision history for items in these modules. For any newly created payrolls or hazard analyses, that information can be viewed in the revision history table. If you need more information on revision history, or if you weren't able to attend our last release training, please check out our YouTube channel. There's a video from our previous release training. It's also linked at the end of these slides in the references slide. Revision history demonstrations are also available along with that recorded training as well. Okay, moving on from revision history, we'll now begin with the administration updates. To begin, we'll start with an update to the CUI tab in the contract setup module, and also an update to the handling of the price negotiation memorandum, or the PNM, and the pre-negotiation objective memorandum, or the POM. So the PNM and the POM are considered controlled unclassified information, or CUI. So that guidance has been added to the CUI tab here in contract setup. If you print or disseminate a PNM or POM, then those documents should be accompanied by a CUI cover sheet. That cover sheet is also available in the contract reports module if you need a copy of that to add. And once you get in the contract reports module, if you just search for CUI cover page, you'll be able to find it there. Next up, this is the first of a few new features that are being added, and this is going to be in the contract file module. A new photo albums tab has been added here to allow the organization of photos into albums, whether that be pictures from the same work site or pictures from a certain period of time. You can organize those into photo albums here. The only photos that can be added here are those that have already been added to the contract, either in a document package in one of the modules or in the contract status photos. You can also link a photo album to a specific feature of work in the contract and specify a location for the photo album. To access this, you will need view access to the contract file module, but in order to add photos, you'll need to read and write access to the contract file module. Just a note, please don't hesitate to provide feedback on this new feature. We will be taking all of that into account as this and other relevant updates are enabled in the application in the future. Next, another related update in this patch for photos. This one is going to be in the contract status module in the contract status photos tab. A new image editor button has been added here to allow editing of the current status photo. This can only be performed on the current status photo set. So if you'd like to edit an image, it does need to be the current status photo. After clicking this button, the image editor window will come up and you'll be presented with a lot of different options for editing the image, like crop, rotate, resize, markup, etc. The image editor is also available in document packages. So when an image is added to the document package, and when that image is selected, the buttons in the document package will allow viewing and editing and saving of the image. If an image is not selected and just a document is selected, then the buttons are going to adjust accordingly. You will need read and write permissions in whichever module the document package resides in order to be able to edit the image. All right. Next, still in contract status, the COR comments tab has been renamed to be the Field Staff Working Notes tab. The field here has also been updated to be the Field Notes field. This update was made in hopes of clarifying what this tab can be and is used for. Any information that was already entered here in the COR comments tab will still remain. Just the title of the tab and the field have been updated. So if you previously had information in this field, it's not gone. It will still be there. Just the title of the field has been updated. And we've also added a note here to make sure it's clear that this is an optional field. It's not required to be filled in, only if desired or if instructed. Any information here can also now be exported to a report that has been made available in the contract reports module. You can use this to communicate the information in this field to those who don't have access to view it. Only those who have access to the contract status module can view this, and then only those with read and write access to the contract status module will be able to update or make any changes. Okay, next, this update is for the request for information module in government mode specifically. A reminder was added to the government response tab to make it clear that once that government response is completed, the contractor will be able to see and view this in contractor mode. So if you respond to contractor RFIs, please remember that any information entered here will be visible to the contractor upon its completion. Okay, moving on to contractor payroll. We had an issue here with users viewing government comments in contractor mode when a payroll was rejected in government mode. So if government comments were entered as part of the rejection in government mode, those were not showing in the payroll in contractor mode. So the contractor couldn't see any guidance provided by the government on correction or updates. This was corrected, and now when a payroll is rejected and government comments are entered as part of that rejection in government mode, those comments will show properly in the contractor mode view of the rejected payroll. Okay, next we'll start to review the updates and fixes made in finances. We'll begin in contract changes. There was an issue that was occurring with the BCD items created under the description tab of change requests. So when creating BCD items here, RMS does allow both letters and numbers to be entered for the BCD item number shown here. And that worked for the first BCD item, but if you attempted to create another BCD item, RMS was throwing this error and would close. This has also been corrected, and RMS will no longer present an error and crash when attempting to create another BCD item after that first BCD item with a letter in its BCD item number has been created. Next up in finances is going to be for contract modifications. An issue was occurring here in the Pay Activities tab. Once a modification to a CLIN was completed, if you were to navigate to the Pay Activities tab in that modification in the same sitting, the CLIN was not updating with the modified amount in the Pay Activities tab. So as shown here on the slide, we have a completed modification where $5 was added to the CLIN. And in the Pay Activities tab, it's not showing the update from the modification. It's still showing as balanced without the $5 variance. So instead of it updating immediately, you would have to exit the modification and then return back to the modification to see the update. This now functions properly. It has been corrected, so when a modification is completed, the Pay Activities tab will update immediately with any changes made via that completed modification. You will not have to exit and return back to the modification for the update to go through. Next is an issue that was occurring in both the current CLINs module as well as the contract modifications. So essentially the issue is that when selecting to view the funding for a modification, whether that be from the current CLINs module, selecting the modification in the CLIN history, or within the modification itself under the release mod tab, the funding account and work item columns were missing from the funding view that resulted from either of these selections. This has been corrected, and when you view the funding for a modification, either by selecting it in the current CLINs, in the CLIN history, or in the release mod tab, the funding account and work item columns are going to show up with the associated information. Next, we have an update to some of the views within finances. The unit of measure column was added to some views to display the unit of measure set in CFUMs, not in RMS. So please keep in mind that the UOM, or the unit of measure in RMS, doesn't have to match the unit of measure in CFUMs, but it is best practice to have them match. As long as the dollar amount matches, it shouldn't matter what the UOM is, but it's best practice to have those match. So first up, we have the award CLINs view displayed here. So when selecting an award CLIN from the award CLINs module, as shown in this image, the unit of measure column is now displaying there. And when clicking on the funding button, the unit of measure column will also display in the obligations for this CLIN data grid in that view as well. And then similarly in the current CLINs module, when selecting a CLIN from the current CLINs selection view as shown here, the unit of measure column will be visible, and then when selecting the funding button, the unit of measure column will be visible in that data grid as well. Also, the unit of measure column was added to 2 areas within contract modifications. This was added to the SF30-1 tab in the contract line items changed by this modification section. And then in the release mod tab in the CLIN changes / obligations for payment section. Okay, moving on, we'll look at the import export tab for the import real property module. There's been an update here to resolve an issue that was occurring with the funding org codes entered in the template file. If the funding org code entered for a real property item existed in multiple fiscal years, an error would occur with the import. So to mitigate this, the funding org FY column was added to the import template file so that the fiscal year for whichever funding org code entered can be specified. Please note that this is a required entry along with the funding org code for each real property item entry that you put into the template file. The format for this entry will be the letters FY and the last 2 digits of the specified year with no space. So in this example, the fiscal year 2021 is being referenced. You'll also notice that it is lowercase, and that's to show that the entry here is not case sensitive for those 2 letters. They can be upper, lower, or mixed case. If you already have this template stored on your computer, please remember that since this column has been added, you'll need to go back to the import real property module and re-download this new template file. The instructions as well as the template file itself have been updated. Okay, and our last item to cover will be an issue that was occurring with a contract report, the submittal register ENG 4288 report. So when running this report and using the include full transmittal history option that's available in that report's parameters, some of the older transmittals were showing up with the core return date, but the core receive date for those transmittals was missing. That is until the transmittal in question was opened in the transmittal log. So even though it did in fact contain a core receive date, it wasn't showing on the report until someone would go and open that transmittal in the transmittal log. This has been corrected, and if a transmittal contains both a core received and a core return date, then those will both show in the report without the extra steps of having to open the transmittals in question. And that concludes our review of the fixes and updates made in this release. Here on the references slide, we have some links to helpful videos, including 2 new demos for this release. We've also got a video demonstrating the revision history update as well as the photo album and image editor updates. There's also some links at the bottom for our website, YouTube channel, the Jira Service Help Desk, and our phone number along with the KM portal link is also available there. So that concludes our presentation portion of this training. So now we'll open up the floor for discussion or any questions you all may have. Excuse me. Thank you.
looks like we do have a question in the chat. Prior to the last update, we were able to see who submitted payrolls. Will this feature be available again? Actually, that's the second time this question was asked. And the answer is yes. It never actually went away. You just couldn't see it. That's the reason for the revision history legacy revision history button that was added to contractor payrolls, as well as the AHAs. So when you go into a payroll, when 9491 gets released, what you'll see is down at the bottom, you'll see the section of the revision history. To the left of that, there's a button that says Legacy Revision History. Click on that, and it'll show you all of the information that you're looking for. I see someone does have their hand up.
Yes. Is there a way to connect RMS and Power BI to get data visualizations made with RMS data?
Go ahead and submit a ticket with that question, because yes, there is, but you have to have the correct permissions and you have to get approval in order to be able to do that. So submit a ticket and we'll look at that.
Okay, thank you.
You could also use EDW as well, so keep that in mind.
About EDW, from what I've seen, that the RMS data is not complete, that there's holes in it. So that's probably something I should also submit a ticket about.
Yes, anything that you think is not complete with EDW, please submit a ticket and we will go ahead and look into that. As of right now, everything that's being sent to EDW from RMS is what was requested. So it should
EDW pulls from a consolidated RMS database that mostly deals with finances, but we can add fields in there. So if you want to see some data in EDW that isn't there getting pulled from RMS, just ask and we can do that.
Thank you.
Let's see, it looks like we have another comment on that. It says, I use some data from CRMS in EDW, or you would need to access the production data from RMS on the district per district basis. Yeah, so we would definitely need a ticket for that one.
I had a question on the CUI markings. What reference requires the CUI on POMS PNM? I guess I'm looking for like FAR, UAI, ER, EM, something like that.
We can get that for you. We had a chat with the TMO about this, and I don't have it offhand, but we can get that to you.
And then the second question I had was on the RFIs. I guess I'm a little bit concerned that we're letting them see everything on that screen, or I'm assuming that's what that slide meant. So previously the secondary reviewer comments were not. So we would consolidate reviewer comments and then come up with a government position. So if it's going to be visible, I mean, we're going to be put in a position we'll probably stop using that section if everything's going to be visible now.
You're talking about the contractor being able to see the secondary reviewer remarks.
Yes. I mean, we don't want them to see that typically. We could have conflicting comments from reviewers, and it's up to the COR, ACO to make a determination and then come up with the official statement, which goes into the government comment box, which is visible to the contractor. You're taking away our working space, I guess.
Understandable.
What I think you're saying, this is Kristen Paul. I think you're talking about the secondary reviewer tab and the government document package go together, whereas the government remarks to contractor and the shared document package go together. Is that the work process you're talking about?
No, I guess if you go back to your slide on that, the RFI, I'm not talking about the document packages. I'm talking the data entry screens. So it looked like from what your slide was indicating, everything on that data entry screen was going to be visible to the contractors. Previously, all that the RFI secondary reviewer and their comments, those were not on the contractor side, but all they could see was the official government response, which I'm saying is under that answer prepared by and then government response. That's all they could see. And then we were using secondary reviewers, if there could be multiple ones, if they had conflicting views or things that wouldn't go in the official response, that was okay to use that as a working space. because we would only have one official response. If all that becomes visible, we could get conflicts. We could also get misunderstandings. So I'm a little bit concerned when you say everything is visible.
Okay, so let me go ahead and clarify that. Basically, everything is visible for the main screen. So if you are looking at the RFIs, the secondary comments are not. So that
Okay.
my secondary reviewer section with the name, when it's due, and who did that, all of that stuff is not viewable by the contractor. The only thing that the contractor can see is the government response field, the answer prepared by, received, date, answered, those kinds of things, and then of course the document package. The secondary reviewers is still not visible to them.
Okay, that's the way I would want that. And
yeah,
okay.
The reason that information was added on there was because there was some confusion that if a government generated RFI was completed and marked as done, the contractor would not be able to see any of it at all, which is actually not what was the case. They were able to see the government response. So this top portion that you're seeing above that RFI reviewers, that is the only thing that's visible, plus the document package, to the contractor when they go in there and open it up after you've marked this as a core ACO approved.
Yeah, I guess when I see that red stamp there, that tells me everything on that page is visible. It says all information is seen.
Thank you for that information. We will definitely take that into consideration and look at possibly improving that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Let's see here. It looks like I'm going to reiterate this question because it was asked earlier and I don't remember if we had an answer. The question was, what is the reference for the requirement to place CUI on all mod packages? And that was from DoD 5200.48, parts 5.3 A and B. Let's see here. There was another question. All right. So another user has a question. Following the latest updates, the ability to return the completed or accepted daily QC reports to the contractor for corrections is not available. Actually, it is. For dailies that require a correction, all you have to do is click on the checkbox for return for corrections. And it doesn't matter if you go ahead and accept the daily already. If you realize that something is wrong, there is that checkbox that is still available. However, you do have to have rewrite permissions in the QC daily modules in order to be able to do that. Oh yes, and Derek put a link to the CUI resources that you can use on the RMS CM portal for us in the chat as well. Let's see here. How is the secondary? Another question was, how is the secondary review comments for an RFI different from the secondary review comments for a submittal? It's pretty much dependent upon your district. As far as RMS is concerned, the secondary reviewer comments for an RFI and the submittal, they're basically the same thing. But how you use them in your district is going to be district specific. Whether or not they're exactly the same, that's dependent upon your district's policy. Could also be your office policy, so keep that in mind. We do have a request to restore the currency symbol in the SF30. We do have something coming up with SF30, so that will be worked on. Thank you. If you would like to further up with anything, feel free to give us a call or submit a ticket one way or the other, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you more about any questions that you have. Another question. Still no return for submittal for corrections. Keep an eye out on the new releases. We do have some things that are in the works. They're not ready yet, and that's pretty much all I can say on that. Any other questions?
Just so you guys know the background behind the warning message about be aware that all information can be seen by the contractor once completed. There are contracts where the government actually plays the role on the contractor side in a contract. So when going in here and doing a response, it gets sent to the contractor, a government RFI. So that was just to clarify the government response box, so that if, whatever you put in this box will go to whoever plays the role of the contractor on this contract, whether it be government or a contractor. And in one of the cases, I believe there was the government did a government RFI and assumed that because it was a government RFI, it would only go to the government. So the government response to a government RFI will go to whoever plays the role of the contractor on the contract. So that's what that warning is. Secondary, yeah, we already went over the secondary reviewer comments. Those will always be government eyes only.
And that is the same for submittals as well. If you've got secondary reviewer comments, that is not visible to the contractor.
And a quick comment about the transmittals. There are different, there's different requirements for that. So per regulations and requirements and direction from the TMO, those will be handled a little bit differently because you can code those for return and have those resubmitted and whatnot. Was there any specific question on returning submittals or transmittals?
No, I guess it's my question. I was just curious because we used to have that option to return a submittal. To bring back the submittal for corrections after we've already sent it to the contractor and signed off on it. But that option was taken away.
For legal purposes, yes, that we unfortunately did have to take that away. If there are extenuating circumstances and something does need to be recoded because it was coded incorrectly, so you accidentally coded it for being done, but it wasn't actually done, then submit a ticket, give us a call, we can help you update that. But that it's limits on what we can do, and it has to do with legality. So just keep that in mind.
Thanks for actually saying that. If it ever came to that, I'm glad we had the option to at least call you and you tell us no or yes.
Correct.
In the case of a transmittal that the government needs to add information to or recode, there is an upcoming release that is going to allow you to recall a transmittal so that you can make those changes. It will follow the same procedure as the return for corrections, as it will create a copy of whatever was signed at the time, and then it will be reprocessed. But until that is out, if you have something that you need to do, then yeah, please call the help desk and we can walk you through that.
Please, that's scheduled for our August release, right?
Yes, that's scheduled for August.
And I think everyone needs to be clear that the reason why that was taken away is because it was done in a manner where there was no record of it being done. So that's really what we're trying to do in RMS with these changes, is make sure we're putting in place systems that and processes that maintain a record. That's why the file history stuff has been revised. Like Bosley said, if you have an issue with the submittal, you choose code and you complete, and later on you have to change it, submit a help desk ticket, and that'll get taken care of until we get this next release in August, where you'll see new functionality that allows the submittal that's been coded to be recalled and recoded, but there will be a history showing that that was all done without it just being, the magic return to button, the transmittal to contractor button that we got rid of because that provided absolutely no record for the contract file, and honestly never should have been there to begin with. So that's the reason for some of those changes. And we understand we're trying to do things to make it as simple and easy as possible, but also maintain good contract admin practices and having the history of what's happening in RMS be similar to what would have happened if we were in the paper era and getting dates, time stamps on documents coming into the office in the mail or in a fax or whatever. Some of the stuff in RMS just didn't provide that level of accountability for when it was happening, and that's what we're cleaning up with all this stuff. So appreciate your patience with all that, but please understand that there's a very good reason why this is all being done. So.
And to note, if the contractor forgets to attach something or add something, then there are 4 codes that you can use in order to get that sent back to them to have them resubmit it. You've got the E code, I believe the other one is a G code, and then an F code, and I can't remember what the other code is. But there are 4 codes that you can use to tell the contractor that, no, this is not right, you've got to resubmit it. So just keep that in mind. And then let's see here. Are there any other questions?
Hey, this is again, I was just on that CUI reference. I looked that up real quick. I'm not making the connection, I guess. Is there something else that's associated with that?
What's your specific question?
Well, I mean, I looked up, you put in the reference there is DOD 5200.48 part 5.3 A and B. So I looked that up real quick. I mean, it just says basically it says, whenever DOD provides information to contractors, it must identify whether any of the information is CUI. So, I mean, that's very generic. I guess in this change to the CUI tab, you're saying in there whether the contract is CUI or not. Those modification package documents, BCDs, government estimates, PNMs, POMs, they all have to be marked CUI. So I guess I'm not making that leap if we don't determine those are.
But that isn't anything new. The only, what are we specifically changing on CUI in this release? It's only adding a marking to POMs and PNMs, correct?
Correct.
So
yeah, I'm trying to make the link to the reference that requires that.
Well, I put a link in the chat to the actual DoD CUI
Yeah, I just read that. Yeah, I just read that. I'm not making that connection to that. Is there something else that contracting put out?
Well, for one, I'm not quite following your question. We're not releasing POMs and PNMs to contractors, so that I'm not sure that's internal government stuff, but it's still required to be marked CUI and have CUI markings. And if it's disseminated, it should have a CUI cover sheet. Now, we don't enforce all that. That's all on you at your district to do whatever your district's telling you to do. What we do know is that there are certain documents that are listed in what's highlighted on the screen right now that contain information that is essentially CUI. A BCD has an IGE on it. Obviously, a trains registers that have government estimates, that's an IGE, that's procurement sensitive. The mod stuff, the PNM and PN and POMs obviously have all of that in there. And it also has pricing information. If you go to the CUI registry in the National Archives, I'll throw that in the chat here. You can see all the different things that are required to be marked CUI. Now, I want to be very clear. Other than the items shown here, the TMO and RMS is not making any other determination on what a CUI. That is up to project teams, districts, policy to determine and do what is necessary and in compliance. But if you look at the link I just put in the chat, general procurement acquisition information is CUI. Now, there are additional marking categories that are somewhat, depending on the latest guidance, I haven't looked at this lately, you can actually mark it CUI / procure and a bunch of others, but it's not necessary. You can just use simple CUI markings as well, but that's why that was added. So all the categories in that link I just sent you are CUI categories. And if you dive further into the category, you can see what makes it CUI. In this particular case, procurement information, especially costing, cost data and things like that are CUI data.
All right, I'll take a look at it. Thanks.
Sounds good. If you have any questions, other questions, please let us know.
There is a question of when the PCF interface with RMS will be restored. We are currently working on that. We hope to have that restored sooner rather than later. However, we do not have a definitive ETA at this point in time.
Just a few minutes ago, you were talking about there's going to be a recall available to the government for submittal revisions. Will this recall be available to the contractors to recall their submittals that they determine that are incorrect or incomplete after they've sent it? And then the second part of the question is, will this recall also be available, or is there one planned for RFI responses where the government needs to revise an RFI response? Over.
Let's start with the first one. You're asking about the transmittals being able for the contractor to recall their side of it?
Yes, similar to what you described, that function available only to the government in an upcoming release. Is there a plan to provide that to the contractors?
Not at
well?
this time, and that is because you can code it to tell them that they've got to redo it. We need to keep track of everything that's been sent to ensure that there's no legal issues down the road. So with the recall, we'll be able to have revision history set up with that. But if the contractor recalls it from their side, due to the complexity of the transmittals, it's a little more complicated than that. So there are no plans to be able to do that because you can already code it to tell them no. I believe F code is the one that says does not meet compliance and must be redone.
Okay, so only the magic works for the government. That same revision history won't work for the contractor. Okay,
At this
no
point in
worries.
time for transmittals, yes.
Okay, no worries. Will there be a recall function available for RFI response to where the government may need to revise previously issued RFI?
With the RFIs,
The quick answer is yes. Once we get the submittal released, we anticipate being able to add that to other modules.
Oh,
But
perfect.
that's a future. Once we've determined which modules would be best suited to have that feature.
All right, thank you.
I think on the contractors being able to pull back a submittal, I think that's something that we could think about, but honestly, I'm not sure how great of an idea it really is. If they submit a submittal, I mean, I kind of look at it this way. What's the best way to make sure a contractor gives their submittals a second overview to make sure they're 100% ready to go before they submit them in RMS? And that is, don't allow them to just pull it back willy-nilly. They get it, they do that, then it's going to get coded and it's going to go back, and there's a record showing how QC is not, doing their job. Their job is to give us thoroughly vetted and complete submittals when they submit them. So then when we take off and begin the review process, we don't have to get 5 days in and then, oh, wait, we forgot, or we did the wrong thing, or we're going to pull it back. And then where's the if a contractor does pull it back and we gave them that ability, then what happens to the time that we just wasted on review, or are we going to get notified that happened? I think there's a lot to think about there. I don't think the current system is that difficult. If they have a problem, they'll notify you. You give it the appropriate code. There's multiple codes available. G code is always there to send it back for an admin issue. And you say why you're sending it back, and you sign it and you send it back. They fix it, they send it back in, and we've got a paper trail of what's going on.
all right. Are there any other questions?
I have a related question.
Please.
That is the contractor's ability to keep submitting serial letters with the same serial letter number. The contract I'm on has submitted H18 3 times now. The letter keeps changing, and I'm not, I go in, grab the letter, assuming I've got the letter, then they simply go in behind me and put in another letter. Now, the letter I'm looking at is out of date, and I shouldn't be looking at it. They've done this a couple of times now. Is there a way, if the submittals won't let them retract or add to, once you send it, it's locked. And if you want to change it, you're going to have to send something different, again, with a new number. Why can't the serial letter functionality be like that? How do we, when a contractor clicks send on the serial letter, how about we have the ability to kind of lock it, and the only serial letter that we need to worry about with attachments is what is there, and they don't keep getting to add it, amend it with new versions of the letter. Is that
Agreed.
a problem, or is that left open like that on purpose?
I think that may be an issue. I'm not 100% sure. So if you would do us a favor, please give us a call or submit a ticket, because we do want to look into that one, because no, they shouldn't be able to make those changes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just how do they lock it and no more changes get made to that, and it requires a new one. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you. I look forward to your ticket. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions, but we do have a few more minutes, so we'll go ahead and hang on in case you think of anything else that you would like to ask. Feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and talk. All right, I do see a question that's come in the chat. I've noticed a notification message about correspondence not being sent to PCF. Is that yes? Everything right now that is currently set at ready to send is not going to send until the RMS PCF interface has been restored.
Was the ETA on that mentioned?
No, we haven't had an ETA mentioned because we are not yet aware of what the ETA is. We are actively working to get that restored, and it looks like it's going to be fairly soon. But that's all I can say.
Once it is restored, the backlog of things that haven't been transmitted out will get
Correct.
caught up with? Okay.
Correct. So as soon as the connection between RMS and PCF has been open, we will open up more connections to be able to send as many documents as possible. So that way we can get everything that's in the backlog sent to PCF as fast as possible. All right. I do not see any more questions, so I'm going to turn it back over to you to close this out.
Thank you all for handling those questions. All right. We'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you all for attending. And like I said earlier, watch out for this video to show up on our website and our YouTube channel, along with the updated slides. Thank you.